The fluorescent lights in Memorial Hospital's ICU corridor flicker at 2:47 in the morning, casting shadows that make the already sterile hallway feel even more lifeless. Marco Delgado pushes his cleaning cart past the nurse's station, the squeaky wheel announcing his presence to no one in particular. The night shift nurses barely glance up anymore. After 6 months of working the graveyard shift, he's become invisible, just another piece of a hospital's nocturnal machinery. His uniform hangs loose on his frame, the blue fabric faded from too many industrial washings. The name tag pinned crooked on his chest reads Marco, in letters that have started to peel at the edges. He's 26 years old, but the exhaustion etched into his face makes him look older. Dark circles shadow his eyes, the kind that come from working 2 jobs and sleeping in 4-hour increments between shifts. The mop bucket sloshes as he turns into room 314. This room has become his personal hell over the past 8 months, though he enters it 4 times each shift without complaint. The machines beat their steady rhythm, monitoring a life that exists somewhere between presence and absence. His mother lies motionless in the hospital bed, her body kept alive by tubes and technology, while her mind remains trapped in darkness. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Maria Delgado used to fill rooms with laughter. She worked as a seamstress in the garment district, her fingers flying across fabric with practiced ease, creating beautiful things from simple materials. She sang constantly while she worked, old songs from their hometown in Colombia, melodies that carried the warmth of sunshine and the ache of memories. Marco grew up surrounded by her music, falling asleep to lullabies that spoke of mountains and rivers he'd never seen but somehow recognized in his bones. The accident happened on a Tuesday evening. Maria was walking home from the bus stop when a delivery truck ran a red light. The driver was texting, distracted for just 3 seconds. 3 seconds that shattered Marco's entire world. The impact sent Maria's body flying 15 feet through the air. Her head struck the pavement with force that caused immediate brain trauma. By the time the ambulance arrived, she'd already slipped into a coma she would never emerge from. The doctors gave Marco statistics and percentages, medical terminology that translated to a simple truth. His mother was gone, even though her body remained. They recommended transitioning her to a long-term care facility, then eventually suggested he consider withdrawing life support. But Marco couldn't let her go. Not when there was even the smallest chance she might wake up, might open her eyes and recognize him, might sing again. So he took the hospital cleaning job specifically to be near her. The position came with medical benefits that covered a portion of her care, and the overnight shift meant he could visit her room multiple times without interfering with doctors' rounds or therapy sessions that accomplished nothing. During the day, he worked construction, hauling materials and demolishing walls until his body screamed for rest he never quite got. The cost of keeping Maria in the ICU was astronomical. Even with insurance, the bills accumulated faster than Marco could pay them. He'd already sold everything of value his mother owned. Her sewing machines, her small collection of jewelry, the television she'd saved 2 years to purchase. He'd moved from their modest apartment to a room in a boarding house where the walls were so thin he could hear his neighbors' conversations at night. None of it mattered. Nothing mattered except keeping his mother alive. Tonight, like every night, Marco begins his cleaning routine with mechanical efficiency. He empties the small trash can near the door, wipes down the surfaces that family members touch during visiting hours, mops the floor in careful strokes that avoid the medical equipment clustered around Maria's bed. The movements are automatic, performed while his mind drifts to calculations about bills and shifts and hours of sleep he won't get. But something about the silence tonight feels heavier than usual. The machines seem louder, their beeping more insistent, as if demanding acknowledgement of a life they're artificially maintaining. Marco pauses in his mopping, leaning against the handle while he studies his mother's face. She looks peaceful, almost serene, as if she's simply sleeping deeply rather than trapped in a neurological prison. The urge hits him suddenly, unexpected and overwhelming. He hasn't sung since the accident. Music felt wrong somehow, like a betrayal of the silence that had claimed his mother. But tonight, exhausted and lonely and desperate for some kind of connection to the woman who raised him, Marco opens his mouth and lets the melody escape. The lullaby, is one she sang to him countless times during his childhood. Duerme Negrito, it's called, an old folk song about a mother working in the fields while her baby sleeps. His voice is rough from disuse, the notes uncertain at first, but muscle memory takes over. The Spanish words flow naturally, carrying the same gentle rhythm his mother once used to soothe his childhood nightmares. Duerme, duerme negrito, que tu mama está en el campo negrito. Sleep, sleep, little one, your mama is in the fields. Marco closes his eyes as he sings, transported back to their small apartment where Maria would sit on the edge of his bed, her work-roughened hands stroking his hair while the lullaby wove protection around him. He can almost smell the faint scent of fabric and thread that always clung to her clothes, can almost feel the safety of knowing she would chase away any darkness. His voice cracks on the second verse, emotion threatening to choke him. Te vie a traer codornices para ti, te vie a traer rica fruta para ti. She's going to bring you quail, she's going to bring you sweet fruit. The irony isn't lost on him. His mother can bring him nothing now except mounting debt and heartbreak. But the song continues pouring out of him anyway, a prayer or a plea, or simply a way to fill the terrible silence. Marco doesn't hear the door open behind him. He doesn't notice the man who steps into the room, moving with the predatory grace of someone accustomed to command. He's lost in the melody, in the bittersweet comfort of connecting with his mother through the only language that transcends consciousness. When the song ends, Marco opens his eyes to find his mother's face unchanged. No miracle awakening, no flutter of recognition. Just the steady beep of machines and the harsh reality of a life suspended in limbo. He blinks back tears, angry at himself for the momentary hope that music might accomplish what medicine couldn't. Where did you learn that song? The voice behind him makes Marco spin around so fast his cleaning cart rattles. His heart slams against his ribs as he takes in the man standing in the doorway of room 314. This is not a lost visitor or a hospital administrator. This is someone who doesn't belong in Memorial Hospital's ICU at 2:47 in the morning, someone whose very presence seems to alter the air pressure in the room. The man is tall, probably 6'2", with broad shoulders that fill out his expensive charcoal suit with an ease that suggests custom tailoring. His dark hair is cut precisely, showing threads of silver at the temples that somehow enhance rather than age his appearance. He's probably in his early 40s, with the kind of face that would be handsome if it weren't so carefully controlled. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and eyes so dark they appear almost black in the fluorescent lighting. But it's not his appearance that freezes Marco in place. It's the aura of contained violence that surrounds him like an invisible force field. This man radiates danger the way other people radiate warmth or friendliness. Every instinct Marco has developed from growing up in rough neighborhoods screams a single message. Do not engage, do not challenge, do not even make direct eye contact. I asked you a question. The man's voice is quiet, controlled, but there's an edge underneath that makes it clear he's unaccustomed to being ignored. He steps further into the room, and Marco notices two things simultaneously. First, the man moves with absolute confidence, his footsteps silent despite expensive leather shoes. Second, there are two other men in the hallway behind him, both built like professional bodyguards, both watching Marco with the focused intensity of trained security. My mother, Marco manages to say, his voice coming out rougher than he intended. She used to sing it to me when I was a kid. The man's eyes flicked to Maria's motionless form in the hospital bed, then back to Marco. Something flashes across his face too quickly to identify. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. Your mother is the patient. Yes, sir. The automatic deference comes from years of dealing with authority figures who held power over his immigration status, his employment, his ability to survive. This man might not be a boss or a police officer, but he's definitely someone important. The quality of his suit alone probably costs more than Marco makes in 6 months. What's the song called? Duerme Negrito. It's an old lullaby from Colombia. Marco's hands tighten on the mop handle, needing something to anchor himself. His mind races through possibilities. Is he in trouble for singing during work hours? Is this man a hospital administrator about to fire him? But that doesn't explain the security detail, or the late hour, or the intensity of the man's focus. The man moves closer to Maria's bed, studying her face with an expression Marco can't quite read. How long has she been here? 8 months, 2 weeks and 5 days. The precision comes automatically. Marco tracks time by his mother's coma, the way other people track it by birthdays or holidays. What happened to her? Marco hesitates. He's told the story to doctors, nurses, insurance representatives, and social workers. But something about the stranger's interest feels different. More personal. Like the answer matters beyond medical curiosity or administrative necessity. Hit and run. Driver was texting and ran a red light. The impact caused severe traumatic brain injury. She's been in a coma ever since. The clinical language helps. It creates distance from the memory of getting that phone call, of rushing to the emergency room to find his mother's skull fractured and her future uncertain. The man's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. When he speaks again, his voice has dropped even lower. Traumatic brain injury from a vehicle accident. Was the driver ever caught? Yes. He got 6 months probation and a fine. The bitterness in Marco's voice is impossible to hide. His lawyer argued it was an accident. The judge agreed. Meanwhile, my mother is trapped in here, and I'm working 2 jobs just to keep her alive. Probation. The man repeats the word like it's a foreign concept. 6 months for destroying a woman's life. That's the justice system. Marco surprises himself with his honesty. He's usually careful about expressing opinions to people who might have power over him. But exhaustion and grief have stripped away his usual filters. The man turns to face Marco fully now, and for the first time, their eyes meet directly. The intensity of that gaze makes Marco want to look away, but he forces himself to hold steady. He sees something unexpected in those dark eyes, something that looks almost like understanding, or maybe recognition of shared pain. You work here? At the hospital? Overnight cleaning crew. It was the only way I could afford to keep her in the ICU. The job comes with medical benefits. Marco doesn't mention the construction work, the boarding house, the ramen noodles he eats for dinner because anything else costs too much. His financial desperation is his own business. The man glances at the cleaning cart, at Marco's worn uniform and exhausted face, and something shifts in his expression. You're here every night. 4 times a shift. I clean this room at the start, middle, and end of my shift, plus an extra visit around 4 a.m. Marco knows this sounds obsessive, but he doesn't care. The day shift nurses told me they've never seen someone visit a coma patient as frequently as I do. But she's my mother. She's all the family I have. I'm not going to let her be alone. The man is silent for a long moment, studying Marco with unsettling focus. Finally, he reaches into his suit jacket, and Marco's muscles tense instinctively. But instead of a weapon, the man withdraws a business card, holding it out with steady fingers. My name is Dante Moretti. I'd like to discuss something with you. Come to this address tomorrow at 10 a.m. Marco takes the card automatically, his fingers registering the heavy cardstock before his brain processes the name. Dante Moretti. The name triggers immediate recognition, even through his exhaustion. Everyone in the city knows that name. Dante Moretti runs the most powerful crime family in the Northeast. His organization controls everything from legitimate businesses to operations the police can't quite prove exist. He's been featured in news articles, the subject of federal investigations that never quite stick, photographed at charity galas where politicians and criminals mingle with equal comfort. And he's standing in Marco's mother's hospital room at nearly 3 a.m, asking about a lullaby. Mr. Moretti, I don't, Marco starts, but Dante cuts him off with a slight gesture. 10 a.m. Tomorrow. It's important. There's no threat in his tone, but there's also no room for negotiation. This isn't a request. It's a command dressed up as an invitation. Dante turns to leave, but pauses at the doorway. Your mother sang that song to you. Did she ever mention where she learned it? Marco's brow furrows at the odd question. She said her own mother sang it to her. It's been in our family for generations, I think. Why? Because my mother used to sing that exact same song to me. Dante's voice carries a weight that makes the confession feel significant, though Marco can't understand why. Same melody, same words, same way of holding the long note on Negrito. I haven't heard it in 30 years. Before Marco can respond, Dante disappears into the hallway, his security detail falling into step behind him. The room suddenly feels emptier, as if his presence had been filling space Marco hadn't realized was available. Marco looks down at the business card in his hand. The address is in the financial district, probably one of those high-rise buildings where corner offices have views of the entire city. The card is simple, elegant, with just a name, address, and phone number embossed in black letters. No job title. No company name. When you're Dante Moretti, apparently you don't need additional identification. His hands are shaking slightly, adrenaline finally catching up with the encounter. Marco should throw the card away. Whatever Dante Moretti wants to discuss, it can't be good. People in Marco's position don't get involved with people in Dante's position. That's survival 101 for anyone trying to live an honest life. But as Marco resumes his cleaning routine, moving mechanically through tasks his body performs on autopilot, his mind keeps returning to Dante's expression when he mentioned his own mother. There was something there, buried beneath all that controlled danger. Grief, maybe. Or longing. The look of someone who understands what it feels like to lose the person who sang you to sleep. Marco finishes mopping the floor and moves his cart toward the door. He pauses one more time to look at his mother, hoping for some sign that tonight's song reached her in whatever dark place her consciousness has retreated to. But Maria remains still, her chest rising and falling with mechanical regularity, her face peaceful and empty. "I don't know what tomorrow brings, Mama," Marco whispers in Spanish. "But I have a feeling everything is about to change." The fluorescent lights continue their steady flicker. The machines continue their rhythmic beeping. And in Marco's pocket, the business card from one of the most dangerous men in the city feels heavier than something made of paper has any right to feel. Marco doesn't sleep when his shift ends at 7 a.m. Instead, he sits in the hospital cafeteria nursing a cup of terrible coffee, turning the business card over and over in his hands like it might reveal hidden messages. The rational part of his brain knows he should ignore the summons. Nothing good comes from meetings with men like Dante Moretti. His mother raised him to value honesty and hard work, to stay away from the kind of life that leads to violence and prison. But the desperate part of his brain, the part that calculates bills and medication costs and sees no mathematical solution to his mother's situation, whispers something different. What if this meeting is an opportunity? What if Dante Moretti wants to offer him something that could actually help Maria? By 9:15, Marco has showered in the locker room the hospital provides for overnight staff, changed into the only decent clothes he owns, a pair of dark jeans without holes and a button-down shirt he usually saves for rare job interviews, and caught a bus headed downtown. The address on the card leads to a glass tower that reflects morning sunlight with blinding intensity. The building's lobby features marble floors, abstract sculptures that probably cost more than Marco's lifetime earnings, and a security desk manned by guards who look like they could break him in half without breaking a sweat. Marco gives his name to the guard, half expecting to be turned away as a prank or mistake. But the guard checks his computer, makes a brief phone call, and then gestures toward a private elevator with polished bronze doors. 25th floor. Someone will meet you. The elevator ride feels both too short and too long. Marco's reflection in the mirrored walls shows him exactly how out of place he looks in this environment. His clothes are clean but cheap, his hair cut with kitchen scissors to save money, his shoes worn down at the heels from too much walking. He looks like what he is, a working-class immigrant trying to survive in a city that eats people like him for breakfast. The elevator doors open onto a reception area that reinforces every insecurity. Floor-to-ceiling windows offer panoramic views of the city. Original artwork decorates walls painted in shades of cream and charcoal. The furniture looks like it belongs in a museum, all clean lines and expensive materials. And behind a massive desk sits a woman in her 50s whose clothes probably cost more than Marco's monthly rent. "Mr. Delgado." She doesn't wait for confirmation. "Mr. Moretti is expecting you." "This way, please." Marco follows her down a hallway where his footsteps are swallowed by carpet so thick it feels like walking on clouds. Everything about this space is designed to intimidate, to remind visitors that they are entering the domain of someone who operates on a completely different level of power and wealth. The woman stops at a set of double doors made from dark wood that's been polished until it gleams. She knocks once, waits for a response Marco can't hear, then opens the door and gestures him inside. Dante Moretti's office is exactly what Marco expected and somehow more. The space is enormous, dominated by a desk that looks like it was carved from a single piece of walnut. Bookshelves line one wall, filled with leather-bound volumes that might actually be read rather than decorative. The windows behind Dante's desk offer an unobstructed view of the city, making him appear backlit and slightly larger than life. But it's not the office that captures Marco's attention. It's the woman in the hospital bed positioned near the windows. She's elderly, probably in her 70s, with white hair spread across a pillow and a face that bears the unmistakable slack quality of deep unconsciousness. Medical equipment surrounds her, the same monitors and 4 stands and breathing apparatus that surround Maria. The beeping is familiar, almost comforting in its consistency. "My mother," Dante says without preamble, standing from his desk and moving toward the woman. "Sophia Moretti. She's been in a coma for 3 years and 7 months." Marco's mind reels trying to process this information. Dante Moretti has his comatose mother in his office. Not in a hospital, not in a care facility, but here, where he conducts business and commands an empire. The dedication is familiar, the refusal to let go, the determination to keep her close. It's exactly what Marco would do if he had Dante's resources. Stroke. Dante continues, his voice matter-of-fact despite the subject. Massive cerebral hemorrhage. She collapsed during Sunday dinner at my home. By the time the ambulance arrived, the damage was irreversible. Like your mother, the doctors say she'll never wake up, but I refuse to let her spend whatever time she is left in some sterile facility where she's just another billing code. Marco takes a hesitant step closer to Sophia Moretti's bedside. Her face, even in unconsciousness, bears traces of the beauty she must have possessed in youth. High cheekbones, elegant bone structure, and even now, a certain dignity in her stillness. "You keep her here? In your office? Where else would she be?" Dante's tone suggests the answer is obvious. "My home felt wrong. Too quiet, too isolated. At least here, she's surrounded by activity. People moving, business being conducted, life happening around her. I talk to her throughout the day. I play music she loved. And every night before I leave, He trails off, something vulnerable flickering across his face before the mask of control slides back into place. "You sing to her," Marco finishes quietly. Dante's silence is confirmation enough. For a moment, the most feared man in the city looks almost human, almost approachable. Then his expression hardens again, the vulnerability locked away behind walls built from years of necessary cruelty. "I haven't been able to sing that lullaby in 30 years, Dante says. "I've tried. The melody starts, and then I lose it, like my memory won't cooperate. But last night, when I heard you singing it in your mother's room, every word came back to me perfectly. I stood in that hallway, and for the first time since she collapsed, I could remember exactly how it sounded when she sang it to me." Marco doesn't know what to say to this confession. The vulnerability it represents feels dangerous, like watching a tiger remove its own teeth. "Why were you at the hospital last night?" "I visit twice a week. Memorial Hospital's cardiac wing is named after my mother. She convinced me to donate the money 15 years ago when I was trying to legitimize parts of my business empire. The irony of her having a stroke despite all that cardiac research isn't lost on me." Dante moves back to his desk, picking up a leather folder and holding it out to Marco. "But I didn't ask you here to discuss coincidences. I have a proposition for you." Marco takes the folder with numb fingers, opening it to find documents he doesn't immediately understand. Medical forms, financial statements, legal agreements filled with terminology that might as well be a foreign language. "Your mother's medical bills currently total $473,000, Dante says. "That number increases by approximately $12,000 every month she remains in the ICU. Your insurance covers 40%, leaving you responsible for the balance. You're 3 months behind on payments, and the hospital has begun the process of transferring her to a county facility." The casual recitation of Marco's private financial catastrophe makes his stomach drop. "How do you know all this?" "I know everything about everyone who interests me. You're 26 years old. You immigrated from Colombia with your mother when you were 8. She worked as a seamstress. You put yourself through 2 years of community college before dropping out to work full-time when her health started failing. You have no criminal record, No family in the country except her, and you're exactly 21 days away from losing the apartment you're trying to keep for when she wakes up. Marco's hands tighten on the folder. The invasion of privacy should make him angry, but mostly he feels exposed. Every private struggle, every humiliation of poverty, laid bare in Dante's calm voice. What do you want from me? I want you to work for me. Dante opens a desk drawer and withdraws another folder, this one thicker. I'm prepared to pay off your mother's entire medical debt. I'll arrange for her transfer to a private facility with the best neurological care available. You'll have access to her 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In addition, I'll pay you a salary of $150,000 per year. The numbers are so absurd that Marco actually laughs, a short, disbelieving sound. To do what? I'm a cleaner and a construction worker. I don't have skills worth that kind of money. You have one skill I need desperately. Dante's expression is completely serious. You can sing that lullaby to my mother. And more than that, you understand what it means to refuse to let go of someone the world has written off as hopeless. I've had nurses, specialists, and caregivers attend to my mother. But none of them see her as anything more than a job. You see your mother as a person worth fighting for. I want someone with that dedication caring for Sophia. Marco stares at him, trying to find the trap hidden in this offer. You want to pay me $150,000 a year to sing to your mother? I want you to be her companion, to talk to her, play music for her, sing to her, treat her like a human being instead of a medical case study. I want someone who understands that being in a coma doesn't mean being less worthy of dignity and attention. Dante's voice carries an edge of something raw. My mother spent 40 years taking care of other people. She raised 3 sons while my father built this empire. She never complained, never demanded attention, never asked for anything for herself. The least I can do is ensure her final days or years are spent surrounded by kindness rather than medical efficiency. The offer is insane. Everything about this situation screams danger and manipulation. Marco should walk out of this office, throw away the business card, and never think about Dante Moretti again. But the documents in the folder tell a different story. These are real medical transfer papers, real financial agreements, real contracts that would fundamentally change his life. What's the catch? Marco asks. Nobody offers this kind of money without expecting something in return. The catch is that you'll be working for me. In my world, around my business. You'll see things and hear things that most people don't. You'll be in my office, in my home, surrounded by my organization. That requires absolute loyalty and complete discretion. Dante's eyes lock onto Marco's with unsettling intensity. Can you provide both? Marco thinks about his mother lying in that hospital room, about the mounting bills, and the approaching deadline when she'll be transferred to a facility where visitors are limited and care is minimal. He thinks about the years of grueling work that haven't been enough, the exhaustion that's become his permanent state, the desperation that wakes him from the little sleep he manages. If I say yes, what happens to my mother immediately? Within 24 hours, she'll be transferred to Silvercrest Medical Center. Private room, around-the-clock nursing care, access to specialists who actually give a damn whether they're. Patients recover. You'll have a suite in the facility's family wing. No more sleeping in boarding houses or stealing naps in hospital locker rooms. And if I say no, Dante's expression doesn't change, but something in the air shifts. Then you continue as you are. I'll respect your decision and leave you alone. But the hospital's deadline doesn't change, and your mother's situation doesn't improve. Sometimes refusing help is just pride dressed up as principle. The words hit harder than they should because they're true. Marco's exhausted pride has been the only thing keeping him going, the belief that he can handle this alone through sheer determination. But he can't. The math doesn't work. The situation is unsustainable. And now someone is offering him a solution that seems too good to be true, which usually means it is. I need time to think about this. You have until 5 p.m. today. Dante pulls a phone from his pocket and sets it on the desk between them. New phone. Untraceable. My direct number is programmed in. Call with your answer. If you say yes, a car will pick you up tonight and take you to see your mother's new facility. If you say no, keep the phone as a souvenir of the strangest job interview you'll ever have. Marco picks up the phone, feeling its weight in his palm. It's one of those expensive models that costs more than 3 months of his rent. Why me? You could hire professional caregivers with actual medical training. Because when I heard you singing to your mother at 3 in the morning, after working a full day of construction followed by a full night of cleaning, with exhaustion written into every line of your body, you weren't performing a duty. You were loving her. Dante's voice drops lower. Medical training is easy to buy. That kind of devotion isn't. The meeting ends with Marco walking back through that intimidating hallway, riding down in the bronze elevator, and emerging onto a city street where normal people conduct normal business. But nothing about his life is normal anymore. He's standing on the edge of a decision that will either save his mother or destroy what's left of his integrity. Marco spends the afternoon walking through the city, the phone heavy in his pocket like a bomb waiting to explode. He stops at his mother's hospital room, standing by her bedside while machines beat their familiar rhythm. "What would you want me to do, Mama?" He whispers in Spanish. "Would you tell me to take his money, or would you say our dignity is worth more than dollars?" But Maria can't answer, and Marco realizes with painful clarity that keeping his pride while she dies in a county facility isn't noble. It's selfish. His mother spent her entire life sacrificing for him, working brutal hours, so he could have opportunities she never had. Now he has the chance to give her comfort in return, and he's hesitating because the money comes from a criminal. At 4:45 p.m., Marco pulls out the phone and stares at Dante's contact information. His thumb hovers over the call button for a full minute before he finally presses it. Dante answers on the first ring. "Yes or no, Marco?" "Yes. But I have conditions." "I'm listening. My mother comes first. Always. If your business interferes with her care, I walk away, contract or no contract. And I don't get involved in anything illegal. I'll care for your mother, I'll be discreet about what I see, but I won't become a criminal for you." Silence stretches across the line for several seconds. Then Dante's voice comes back, carrying a note that might be respect. "Agreed. The car will be at Memorial Hospital's main entrance in 1 hour. Bring anything you want to keep from your mother's room. Everything else will be handled." The line goes dead. Marco stands in the hospital corridor, staring at the phone, wondering if he's just made the best decision of his life or signed away his soul. The transition happens so fast it feels surreal. Within 2 hours, Maria is being carefully transported by a private ambulance to Silvercrest Medical Center, a facility so luxurious it looks more like a 5-star hotel than a medical building. Marco follows in a black town car driven by one of Dante's security team, a massive man named Vincent who doesn't speak except to confirm basic directions. Silvercrest sits on a hill overlooking the city, surrounded by manicured gardens and protected by gates that require security clearance to pass. The building itself is modern glass and stone, designed to let in maximum natural light while maintaining privacy. They wheel Maria through corridors that smell like lavender and fresh flowers instead of disinfectant and despair. Her new room is on the 3rd floor, with windows facing east to catch morning sunlight. The space is 3 times larger than her ICU room at Memorial, with comfortable furniture for visitors, a private bathroom, and medical equipment that looks brand new rather than functional. A nurse named Patricia greets them with the kind of warm professionalism that comes from being paid extremely well to care deeply. "We've reviewed your mother's full medical history," Patricia says, checking Maria's vitals with efficient gentleness. Dr. Chin will be her primary neurologist. He specializes in coma patients and has pioneered several promising treatment protocols. He'll meet with you tomorrow morning to discuss her care plan. Marco stands in the center of the room, overwhelmed by the sudden change in circumstances. Just this morning, he was mopping hospital floors. Now his mother is surrounded by luxury he never imagined she'd experience. The guilt hits him in waves. This comfort comes from Dante Moretti's money, built on activities Marco doesn't want to examine too closely. "Your suite is next door," Patricia continues, gesturing to a door that connects to an adjacent room. "You'll have complete privacy, but immediate access if anything changes with your mother's condition. Meals are provided in the family dining room on the 1st floor, or you can request room service anytime." The suite is nicer than any apartment Marco has ever lived in. King-size bed with sheets that feel like silk, a sitting area with a television and bookshelves, a bathroom with a walk-in shower and towels so thick and soft they seem absurd. The closet contains clothes in his size, casual and professional options he definitely didn't own before. Marco sits on the edge of the bed, his mind struggling to process this new reality. Less than 12 hours ago, he was eating ramen noodles for dinner and calculating whether he could afford to repair his worn-out work boots. Now he's surrounded by comfort that feels borrowed or stolen, definitely not earned. His new phone buzzes with a text message. Dante's name appears on the screen. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. My mother will be moved to Silvercrest as well. We'll establish a routine that works for both our families. Marco types back a simple acknowledgement, then sets the phone aside and returns to his mother's room. He pulls a chair close to her bedside and takes her hand, the familiar weight of her unconscious fingers grounding him in this strange new world. "We made it, Mama," he whispers. "You're somewhere safe now. Somewhere beautiful. And I promise I'll take care of you the way you always took care of me." The machines beat their steady rhythm. Outside the windows, the city glows with evening lights. And somewhere in a glass tower downtown, Dante Moretti conducts business with the knowledge that tomorrow morning, his mother will finally hear that lullaby again. Marco doesn't expect to sleep in the unfamiliar luxury of his new suite, but exhaustion claims him the moment his head hits the pillow. He sleeps dreamlessly for the first time in 8 months, waking to sunlight streaming through windows he forgot to cover with curtains that probably cost more than his old security deposit. Dante's mother arrives at Silvercrest at 8:30 a.m., transported with the same careful attention Marco's mother received. Sofia Moretti is installed in a room directly across the hall from Maria's, the two women now separated by barely 20 feet of corridor instead of the vast distance between hospital wards and private offices. Marco meets Dante in the hallway between their mother's rooms. In the bright morning light of Silvercrest's elegant corridor, the Mafia boss looks somehow more human than he did in his intimidating office. He's dressed more casually today, dark slacks and a gray sweater that probably still costs more than Marco's entire wardrobe, but the effect is less imposing. More like a son visiting his sick mother than a criminal overlord conducting business. "Thank you for agreeing to this arrangement," Dante says, extending his hand for a formal handshake. His grip is firm without being aggressive, the gesture surprisingly normal, given the circumstances. "Thank you for making it possible." Marco's voice is steady despite his nervousness. "I visited your mother's room already this morning. She's settled in well. The staff here is incredible. They should be. I own the facility." Dante says this without arrogance, just stating a fact. "I acquired it 2 years ago specifically to ensure my mother would have the best possible care. The fact that it now serves your mother as well feels appropriate somehow." They establish a routine over the following days that's both strange and surprisingly comfortable. Marco spends mornings with his own mother, talking to her in Spanish, playing the music she loved, maintaining the one-sided conversations that keep her connected to a life she can't actively participate in. He describes the beautiful room, the gardens visible from her window, the sound of birds singing in the trees outside. Afternoons belong to Sofia Moretti. Marco sits beside her bed, sometimes reading aloud from books Dante says she enjoyed, sometimes simply describing the view, or the weather, or small observations about the day. And every afternoon at 3 p.m., he sings. The lullaby first, that connection to both their childhoods, then other songs Sofia apparently loved. Italian folk songs Dante has written down in careful handwriting, American standards from the 40s and 50s, even some classical pieces Marco has to learn phonetically from recordings. Dante is present for many of these sessions, sitting in the corner of his mother's room with his phone silenced and his attention fully focused on Sofia's peaceful face. He never interrupts, never corrects Marco's pronunciation or suggests different songs. He just listens, and sometimes Marco catches an expression on his face that looks like grief mixed with gratitude. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. The evenings are when things get complicated. Dante conducts business from Silvercrest now, transforming a conference room on the first floor into a temporary office. Marco tries to stay away during these hours, but the building isn't large enough for complete separation. He sees people coming and going, men in expensive suits who carry themselves with the same controlled danger as Dante. He hears fragments of conversations that make it clear the Moretti family business extends far beyond legitimate enterprises. Marco keeps his head down and his mouth shut, remembering his promise of discretion. He's not naive enough to believe Dante would tolerate betrayal, contract or no contract. The comfort and security he now enjoys came with strings attached, invisible but unbreakable. 3 weeks into this new arrangement, Marco is reading to Sofia when Dante enters the room with an expression that immediately puts Marco on alert. The Mafia boss's face has gone cold, the warmth Marco has occasionally glimpsed completely erased by whatever news he's just received. "Leave us," Dante says quietly, and the ice in his voice makes Marco move without question. He retreats to his mother's room, but the walls at Silvercrest are thick enough that he can't hear what's being discussed across the hall. 20 minutes later, Dante appears in Maria's doorway, his expression still shuttered but somehow more focused on Marco than before. "We need to talk. My office. Now." Marco follows Dante downstairs to the converted conference room, his mind racing through possibilities. Has he done something wrong? Violated some unspoken rule? Seen something he shouldn't have? Dante closes the door behind them and turns to face Marco with unsettling intensity. "Do you know why your mother's accident happened?" The question is so unexpected that Marco actually stumbles over his response. The driver was texting. It was random. Wrong place, wrong time. No, it was deliberate. Dante pulls out his phone and swipes through several screens before turning it to show Marco. "I had someone investigate the accident more thoroughly. The driver who hit your mother was paid $50,000 to make it look random. He was targeting her specifically." Marco's vision goes gray around the edges. "That's impossible. Who would want to hurt my mother? She was a seamstress. She had no enemies. She lived a quiet life. She lived a quiet life here. But before she immigrated to America, she lived in Medellin. And in Medellin, 28 years ago, she worked for a man named Eduardo Vargas." Dante's voice is carefully neutral. "Does that name mean anything to you?" Marco shakes his head, numb with shock. His mother never talked about her life before they came to America. He'd always assumed it was too painful, memories of the poverty and violence she wanted to escape. Eduardo Vargas ran one of the smaller cartels in Colombia during the 80s and 90s. Nothing like Pablo Escobar's operation, but significant enough to have connections throughout South America and into North America. Your mother worked in his household as a housekeeper, and apparently she witnessed something that made her a liability. My mother was a housekeeper, not a criminal. She wasn't, but she saw things that could have destroyed Vargas's operations if she ever testified. When she fled Colombia with you, Vargas let her go because he believed she was too terrified to ever speak. But recently, his organization discovered she was still alive. They decided to eliminate that potential threat. Marco's legs feel weak. He sinks into a chair, trying to process this information. The driver got probation because someone paid off the judge? The driver got probation because Vargas has reach even here. The accident was meant to look random. Your mother's coma was an acceptable outcome, almost better than death, because it ensured her permanent silence. Dante sits across from Marco, his expression grave. "Here's where it gets worse. Vargas's people have discovered that you survived, and they're concerned that your mother might have told you things before the accident, things that could still be dangerous to them. She never told me anything. I didn't even know she worked for a cartel. They don't care what you actually know. They only care about eliminating variables." Dante's voice drops lower. "As of this morning, there's an active contract on your life. $25,000 to anyone who kills you and makes it look like an accident." The room spins. Marco grips the arms of his chair, fighting the urge to vomit. "Why are you telling me this? Why do you even know about it?" "Because Vargas's operation overlaps with mine in certain territories. When a contract goes out, people in my organization hear about it. And when I discovered the target was the man caring for my mother, I made some calls." Dante leans forward, his expression intense. "Marco, you can't go back to your old life. You can't leave this facility without security. The moment you step outside these gates without protection, you're a target. So I'm a prisoner now." Anger cuts through Marco's shock. "I traded one kind of cage for another. You're alive. If you'd rejected my job offer, you'd be dead within a week, and you wouldn't even know why. Dante's voice softened slightly. I'm not your enemy, Marco. But you've landed in the middle of a situation that's much bigger than either of us anticipated. Vargas wants you dead. The only reason you're breathing right now is because you're under my protection. I never asked for protection. I never asked to be part of this world. Neither did your mother. She was just trying to survive, same as you. But sometimes survival means making impossible choices. Dante stands, moving to the window that overlooks Silvercrest Gardens. I'm increasing security around the facility. No one enters or leaves without clearance. You'll have a bodyguard whenever you go outside these walls, which should be rarely until we resolve this situation. How do you resolve someone wanting me dead? Dante turns back to face him, and the expression on his face makes Marco's blood run cold. I make them understand that you're more valuable alive than dead. And I make sure they know that anyone who touches you will answer to me personally. The promise is delivered in a tone that makes it clear exactly what answering to Dante personally would entail. Marco should be horrified by the implied violence. Instead, he feels a disturbing sense of relief that someone with power is standing between him and the people who want him dead. Why? Marco asks quietly. Why protect me? I'm just the guy who sings to your mother. Because in the 3 weeks you've been here, my mother has shown more response to stimulation than she has in nearly 4 years. Her heart rate increases when she hears your voice. Her brain activity spikes when you sing. The neurologist believes you're reaching her in ways medical intervention hasn't. Dante's expression is raw, vulnerable in a way Marco has never seen. And because you're the only person I've met who understands what it means to refuse to let go. You don't give up on people the world has dismissed. Neither do I. The moment stretches between them, heavy with implications Marco doesn't fully understand. This isn't just about medical care or business arrangements anymore. Something more complex is developing, connections forming that go beyond employer and employee. What happens now? Marco finally asks. Now you stay safe. You continue caring for both our mothers. And I handle Eduardo Vargas. The cold calculation returns to Dante's voice. He made a mistake when he came after you. He thought you were just some desperate immigrant with no protection. He didn't realize you're under the Moretti family umbrella now. That's a mistake I'll make sure he regrets. Marco should feel troubled by the violence implicit in Dante's words. Instead, he feels something closer to gratitude mixed with an emotion he can't quite name. For the first time since his mother's accident, someone is fighting for him instead of against him. Someone sees him as worth protecting rather than using. Thank you, Marco says, the words inadequate but sincere. For everything. The medical care, the security, the truth about what happened. You didn't have to do any of this. Yes, I did. Dante's expression is unreadable. Whether I wanted to admit it or not, the moment I heard you singing that lullaby, you became my responsibility. I don't abandon my people, Marco. And like it or not, you're one of my people now. The declaration should feel threatening. Instead, it feels like the safest thing Marco has heard in 8 months. He's part of something now, protected by forces he doesn't fully understand but can't afford to reject. The cost of that protection will become clear eventually. But for now, his mother is safe, he's alive, and someone is finally on his side. That night, Marco sings the lullaby to both mothers, his voice carrying through the open doors of their adjacent rooms. The melody that connects all of them, past and present, 2 women trapped in darkness, and the men who refuse to let them go. Duerme, duerme, negrito. Sleep, sleep, little one. Somewhere in the city, Eduardo Vargas is about to learn that the young man he dismissed as an easy target is under the protection of someone far more dangerous than a Colombian cartel. And Dante Moretti is preparing to send a message that will echo through the criminal underworld for years to come. Nobody threatens what belongs to him. Not his territory, not his business, and definitely not the man who gave his mother back her lullaby. The escalation begins quietly, the way most wars do in Dante's world. Phone calls are made, meetings arranged, messages delivered through intermediaries who understand that certain conversations can never be recorded or witnessed. Marco is kept carefully separate from these machinations, but he feels their effects in the increased security presence at Silvercrest and the tension that radiates from Dante during their daily interactions. A week after learning about the contract on his life, Marco notices a new member of the security team. Vincent, the driver who brought him to Silvercrest on that first night, now shadows Marco's movements with professional discretion. He maintains a respectful distance, but makes his presence known. A constant reminder that Marco's freedom now comes with protection he never asked for but desperately needs. Vincent will accompany you whenever you leave the facility, Dante explains during one of their afternoon sessions in Sophia's room. He's former military, specialized in close protection. He won't interfere with your daily routine, but he will ensure you stay alive. Marco glances at Vincent, who stands near the door with the relaxed alertness of someone trained to spot danger before it materializes. I don't need a babysitter. You need someone who can stop a bullet. Dante's tone leaves no room for argument. Vargas's operation is based in Miami, but they have people throughout the Northeast. Until I've neutralized this threat, you don't go anywhere alone. Not negotiable. The reality of a situation settles over Marco like a weight. He's trapped in a gilded cage, surrounded by luxury and protection that comes with strings he's only beginning to understand. Every comfort has a price. Every security measure is a reminder that his life is no longer fully his own. But when he sits beside his mother's bed, holding her hand while machines monitor her stable but unchanged condition, Marco can't bring himself to regret the choice he made. Maria is receiving care that would have been impossible before. She's comfortable, safe, surrounded by peace rather than the chaos of underfunded hospital wards. If the cost of that comfort is Marco's freedom, it's a trade he'll make every time. The breakthrough with Sophia comes on a Wednesday afternoon, during one of Marco's regular singing sessions. He's working through an Italian folk song Dante taught him, struggling with the pronunciation but committed to getting it right, when Sophia's right hand twitches. It's a tiny movement, barely perceptible, but Marco catches it because he's been watching for exactly this kind of response. Dante, Marco calls, his voice sharp with urgency. Something's happening. Dante is across the hall in Maria's room, but he appears in seconds, moving with the speed of someone trained to respond to crisis. What is it? Her hand. It moved. Marco points to Sophia's fingers, which have gone still again. It wasn't a spasm. It was deliberate, like she was responding to the song. Dante moves to his mother's side, taking her hand with a gentleness that contrasts sharply with his usual controlled demeanor. Mom, can you hear me? If you can hear my voice, try to move your fingers again. Nothing happens for several heartbeats. Then, so faintly that Marco almost misses it, Sophia's fingers contract slightly in Dante's grip. The movement is weak, uncertain, but unmistakably present. Dante's entire body goes rigid. His face transforms, hope and disbelief warring with the careful control he maintains like armor. She responded. She actually responded. Keep talking to her, Marco urges. The doctor said repetitive stimulation could create neural pathways. If she's starting to process external input, we need to encourage it. For the next 20 minutes, Dante speaks to his mother in a voice Marco has never heard before. Soft, tender, filled with memories and love usually hidden behind walls of necessity and danger. He describes family dinners, childhood moments, promises about the future when she wakes up. And throughout it all, Sophia's fingers continue to twitch sporadically, small signs of consciousness trying to fight its way back to the surface. Dr. Chen is called immediately. He arrives within 30 minutes, conducting a thorough neurological examination while Dante hovers with barely contained intensity. The doctor's expression is professionally cautious, but Marco catches hints of genuine interest beneath the clinical detachment. These responses are promising, Dr. Chen says, reviewing data from the monitoring equipment. Her brain activity has increased significantly over the past 3 weeks. I believe the consistent auditory stimulation, particularly the music and singing, is creating new neural connections. It's too early to predict if she'll achieve full consciousness, but this is the most positive development I've seen in a patient with her condition in a very long time. Dante's relief is palpable, though he masks it quickly behind his usual controlled expression. After Dr. Chen leaves, he turns to Marco with something that looks almost like vulnerability. You did this. Your singing brought her back. We don't know that she's back yet, Marco cautions, not wanting to build false hope. But it's a start. It's more than we had yesterday. It's everything. Dante's voice is rough with emotion he can't quite hide. For 3 years, I've sat beside her bed watching machines keep her alive while she drifted further away. You've been here 3 weeks, and she's responding. Don't minimize what that means. The gratitude in Dante's expression makes Marco uncomfortable in ways he doesn't fully understand. This arrangement was supposed to be transactional, employer and employee with clear boundaries. But those boundaries are blurring, complicated by shared grief, unexpected connection, and the strange intimacy of caring for each other's mothers. That evening, as Marco sings the lullaby to both women, he notices Dante standing in the hallway between their rooms, listening with closed eyes and an expression of profound peace. In this moment, he doesn't look like a mafia boss or a dangerous criminal. He looks like a man desperate for his mother to hear a song that connects them across the void of unconsciousness. When the song ends, Dante opens his eyes and meets Marco's gaze. Something passes between them, unspoken but understood. They're both fighting the same battle against loss and helplessness. They're both clinging to hope when logic says there's nothing left to hope for. And somehow, in this strange situation they've created, they've become allies in a war against fate itself. "Thank you," Dante says simply, 2 words that carry the weight of everything he can't express. Marco nods, accepting the gratitude without demanding explanation. Some things don't need to be said aloud. Some connections form in silence, built on shared experience and mutual understanding rather than words. The attack comes 3 days later, shattering the fragile peace that had begun to feel almost sustainable. Marco is in the gardens with Vincent, enjoying rare October sunshine while his bodyguard maintains his usual professional distance. They're discussing nothing important, just casual conversation about the weather and the upcoming change of seasons, when Vincent's entire posture shifts. "Get behind me. Now." The command is sharp, urgent, delivered in a tone that makes Marco move before his brain fully processes the danger. 2 men are approaching from the parking area, their movements too purposeful to be casual visitors. They're dressed normally, nothing immediately threatening about their appearance, but Vincent reads danger in their approach the way some people read books. Vincent's hand moves inside his jacket, and Marco knows without seeing that he's reaching for a weapon. "Stay low. Don't move." The next 30 seconds happen, so fast that Marco's memory will never quite capture all the details. One of the approaching men reaches into his jacket. Vincent draws his own gun with practiced speed. Shouts echo across the garden. Security alarms begin shrieking inside Silvercrest's building. Gunfire erupts, sharp cracks that seem impossibly loud in the peaceful afternoon. Vincent returns fire while simultaneously pushing Marco toward the ground, shielding him with his own body. More security personnel pour from the building, surrounding the attackers with overwhelming force. It's over in less than a minute. Both attackers are down, wounded but alive, surrounded by Dante's security team. Marco is unharmed, though his ears ring from the proximity of gunfire and his hands shake with adrenaline he can't process. Dante appears like a storm, his expression promising violence to anyone who threatens what he's claimed as his. He surveys the scene with cold calculation, then moves directly to Marco, checking for injuries with hands that are surprisingly gentle given the fury in his eyes. "Are you hurt?" "No. Vincent protected me." Marco's voice sounds distant, shock muting his emotions into something flat and disconnected. Dante turns to Vincent. "Get him inside. Medical check. Full security sweep. I want to know exactly how these men got past our perimeter." Vincent guides Marco back into Silvercrest while Dante remains in the garden, dealing with the attackers in ways Marco probably doesn't want to witness. His legs feel unsteady, the delayed reaction to nearly dying finally catching up with his nervous system. In the medical bay, a nurse checks Marco for injuries he doesn't have while Vincent stands guard with an expression that suggests profound failure. "I should have spotted them sooner," the bodyguard says quietly. "They got too close." "You saved my life," Marco responds, his voice steadier now. "If you hadn't reacted when you did, I'd be dead. Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. In protection work, close means I failed." Vincent's self-recrimination is fierce, professional pride wounded by the near miss. Dante joins them 20 minutes later, his knuckles bruised and his expression carved from ice. He dismisses the nurse and Vincent with a gesture, leaving himself alone with Marco in the small examination room. "The men were freelancers from Philadelphia," Dante says without preamble. "Vargas hired them through intermediaries." They confessed everything before. He trails off, and Marco doesn't ask what happened after the confession. Some knowledge is better avoided. "This is my fault," Marco says. "If I hadn't accepted your job offer, none of this would be happening. You wouldn't be at war with Vargas, your facility wouldn't be under attack, and stop." Dante's voice cuts through Marco's spiral with sharp authority. "Vargas came after you before you ever met me. I'm not at war with him because of you. I'm at war with him because he made the mistake of targeting someone under my protection. That's on him, not you. How does this end? More attacks? More violence? When do we stop looking over our shoulders?" Dante moves closer, his presence overwhelming in the small room. "It ends when Vargas understands that you're more trouble alive than dead. When he realizes the cost of continuing this vendetta exceeds any benefit he might gain from your silence." "How do you make him understand that?" "I'm working on it." The cold promise in Dante's voice sends chills down Marco's spine. "But in the meantime, you stay safe. You stay close. And you trust that I will handle this." Marco looks up at Dante, seeing the dangerous man beneath the occasional glimpses of humanity. This is who Dante really is, someone who responds to threats with overwhelming force, who protects what's his with ruthless efficiency. Marco should be frightened. Instead, he feels something closer to trust. "Okay," Marco says quietly. "I trust you." Something flickers in Dante's expression, surprise or satisfaction, or perhaps something more complicated. His hand reaches out, almost touching Marco's shoulder, then pulls back as if remembering some invisible boundary. "Good. Because I'm not letting anything happen to you. Not while you're giving my mother back her life." The words hang in the air between them, heavy with implications neither is ready to explore. They're more than employer and employee now, but less than friends. They're two men bound by circumstance and necessity, orbiting each other in patterns that feel both inevitable and terrifying. That night, Marco can't sleep despite the exhaustion that pulls at his bones. He sits beside his mother's bed, holding her hand and replaying the attack in his mind. He came so close to dying today. If Vincent had been slower, if Dante's security had been less prepared, Marco would be gone, and his mother would be alone again, transferred back to some underfunded facility where her care would be minimal and her comfort non-existent. "I'm in over my head, Mama," Marco whispers in Spanish. "I'm living in a world I don't understand, protected by a man who terrifies me, and I can't figure out if I'm being saved or if I'm being trapped. But I'd do it again. Every choice that led me here, I'd make it again if it meant you were safe." The machines beep their response. Maria's face remains peaceful, unchanged, offering no guidance for the impossible situations her son now faces. Marco sits in the darkness, listening to mechanical breathing and distant security patrols, wondering how his life became something from a thriller novel instead of the simple existence he'd always imagined. Across the hall, Dante sits with his own mother, speaking quietly in Italian about memories and promises. Two men separated by walls and circumstances, united by love for women who can't love them back, at least not in ways the conscious world recognizes. And somewhere in Miami, Eduardo Vargas is learning that his casual decision to eliminate a potential liability has escalated into a war with one of the most dangerous families in organized crime. The message Dante sends is delivered through channels that ensure maximum impact and unmistakable clarity. Touch Marco Delgado again, and there won't be enough left of your organization to identify the pieces. The war has begun, and Marco is caught in the center, protected by violence he doesn't condone but can no longer avoid. The breaking point comes when Vargas makes his fatal mistake. He sends men not after Marco, but after Maria herself, believing that destroying what Marco loves most will break Dante's protection. They never reach her room. Dante's security intercepts them at Silvercrest gates, but the message is clear: nowhere is truly safe. Marco finds Dante in Sophia's room that night, his controlled facade finally cracking. "I can't protect everyone," Dante admits, the words tasting like failure. "I can secure this building, but your mother will always be vulnerable. As long as Vargas lives, you'll both be targets." "Then what do we do?" Marco's voice is steady despite the fear coursing through him. "I end this. Permanently." Dante's expression is carved from stone. "But it means I have to leave. Go to Miami. Handle Vargas personally. And while I'm gone, you'll be here alone." The thought of Dante leaving creates an unexpected hollowness in Marco's chest. Over the past 6 weeks, Dante has become more than an employer or protector. He's become the person Marco trusts most in the world, the one constant in a life that's been turned upside down. How long will you be gone? As long as it takes. Dante moves closer, his hand finally making contact, gripping Marco's shoulder with surprising gentleness. But I need you to promise me something. No matter what you hear, no matter what people tell you about what I'm doing in Miami, you'll stay here. You'll keep singing to my mother. You'll keep her connected to life until I can come back. I promise. The words feel like a vow, binding and absolute. Dante leaves that night, taking half a security team with him. The absence feels tangible, like Silvercrest itself is holding its breath, waiting for his return. Marco fills the empty days with routine, singing to both mothers, watching Sophia's responses grow stronger while Maria remains suspended in her familiar silence. Dr. Chin believes Sophia might wake up within weeks. The neural pathways are rebuilding, consciousness fighting its way back to the surface. But every improvement feels bittersweet without Dante here to witness it. News filters back through Vincent in careful doses. Dante has dismantled Vargas's Miami operations. 3 of Vargas's lieutenants have disappeared. The Colombian's empire is crumbling under systematic destruction that's as brutal as it is efficient. And finally, after 2 weeks of silence, Vincent delivers the message Marco has been waiting for. It's done. Vargas is dead. The boss is coming home. Dante returns on a gray November morning, looking exhausted and somehow older. There's blood under his fingernails he hasn't quite scrubbed away, and his eyes carry shadows Marco hasn't seen before. But when he enters Sophia's room and sees his mother's eyes tracking movement, actually following him across the space, something in his expression breaks open. Mom! His voice cracks on the word. Can you hear me? Sophia's lips move, struggling to form words that haven't been spoken in nearly 4 years. Dante! It's barely a whisper, rough and uncertain, but unmistakably her voice. Dante drops to his knees beside her bed, tears streaming down his face without shame or hesitation. He clutches his mother's hand while she whispers his name again, her consciousness still fragile but undeniably present. Marco watches from the doorway, his own eyes wet, witnessing a miracle built from violence and love in equal measure. Later, after the doctors have examined Sophia and confirmed what they all witnessed, Dante finds Marco in the gardens where the attack happened weeks ago. The autumn air is cold, carrying the promise of winter, but neither man seems to notice. Thank you, Dante says, the words inadequate for everything Marco has given him. You brought her back. You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. We brought her back together. Marco's voice is soft. You protected us. You made this possible. They stand in silence, the space between them charged with things neither knows how to say. Marco has fallen into something he didn't expect, feelings for a man who terrifies and fascinates him in equal measure. A man who kills without hesitation, but loves with devastating intensity. A man who saw Marco at his lowest and offered not just survival, but belonging. What happens now? Marco asks. Vargas is gone. The threat is over. Do I still work for you, or was this arrangement only temporary? Dante turns to face him fully, and the expression in his dark eyes makes Marco's breath catch. You think I let you go now? After everything? His hand reaches out, cupping Marco's face with surprising tenderness. You're not just the man who sings to my mother anymore, Marco. You're the person I trust with the things I love most. You're the one I think about when I should be focused on business. You're the reason I came back from Miami instead of burning it all down and staying until there was nothing left to destroy. The confession hangs between them, heavy with possibility and danger and promise. Marco should pull away, should maintain the boundaries that have already blurred beyond recognition. Instead, he leans into Dante's touch, accepting what's growing between them even though it terrifies him. I don't know how to be what you need, Marco whispers. I'm not part of your world. I don't understand the things you do. You don't have to understand. You just have to stay. Dante's thumb brushes across Marco's cheek. Stay and sing. Stay and make me remember that there's more to life than violence and power. Stay and let me protect you the way you've protected the people I love. Marco's answer comes not in words but in action. He closes the distance between them, pressing his forehead against Dante's, breathing the same air, occupying the same impossible space between two worlds that should never have collided. Inside Silvercrest, Sophia continues her slow journey back to consciousness, speaking more each day, remembering her life piece by piece. And in the room across the hall, Maria remains suspended in darkness, but surrounded by better care than she ever could have received without Dante's intervention. 2 mothers, 2 sons, and a love built from desperation and devotion, and the simple act of singing a lullaby that connected them across pain and impossibility. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love the story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.